It's almost like the Forrest Gump of space careers. I've just been so incredibly lucky to have been in so many amazing historical places.
Peter is one of our nation's best minds and experts in space. He has worked in multiple presidential administrations and is responsible for shaping our country's national security, commercial, and civil space policy over the years.
He's someone who really pursued his dreams to work in space and has made such a big impact working in the White House and now working in commercial areas.
When Peter Marquez was 5 years old, he watched the launch of STS-1 on television. That experience was the defining moment for him, solidifying that working towards space was all he ever wanted to do. That desire led him to space camp in 1990, where he found himself surrounded with fellow space nerds and immersed in the experience. For Peter, the most impactful aspect of space camp were the educational challenges presented to him.
You're 12, 13, 14, and you are capable of doing things that maybe you had not thought you were capable of doing. So it's kind of like when you play sports and that coach makes you run the lap that you just know you physically can't run, but you do it anyway, and at the end, you're like, I didn't know that was in me. That's kind of how you feel at the end of space camp was, okay, I didn't know that was in me.
Peter attended George Washington University for college, where he received a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's in space policy. From 2000 to 2004, he worked for the U.S. Air Force on space policy and operations. Then in 2005, he began working as the director of special programs for the U.S. Department of Defense. The experience he gained catapulted him into his next position as director of space policy for the National Security Council in the White House, beginning in 2007, working for Presidents Bush and Obama.
He was the advisor to the president, he was the advisor to the vice president, he was the advisor to the national security advisor on space. On national security space, there are very few people that could do that job.
In 2010, Peter wrote the national space policy for the Obama administration. After his time in the White House, Peter worked as vice president of strategy and policy at Orbital Sciences Corporation, and then as vice president of global engagement at Planetary Resources. Then in 2020, Peter was asked to return as a consultant to the White House by the National Space Council's Executive Secretary, Scott Pace.
When we needed to update the 2020 space policy, I brought in Peter, who had helped write the 2010 policy, to help write the 2020 policy.
Peter now works at Amazon Web Services as head of space policy. He's also found time to work as a space consultant for the Netflix comedy series, Space Force.
Peter used to wear pinstriped suits to every meeting. Comedy writers, we wear baseball caps and t-shirts. Peter had lunch with us. He looked like the Godfather had taken his softball team out to lunch. It says a lot about a man that the worst thing you can say is, he dressed really well. Congrats, Peter.